Welcome to the Unity Guides Expert Interviews series. My name is Clayton Stenson, and I'll be your host today. This series is brought to you by Unity Guides Incorporated, where we help develop Unity within companies running on the EOS system. We do this through fractional integrator services and relationship coaching for the visionary and integrator. And the reason I started this interview series is that I've met some pretty amazing people in recent years, and the conversations I've had with them have been valuable to me. And I thought, geez, I need to share these with other people to add value to them as well. So today, our guest is Tyler Nicholett. Tyler is a personal growth coach here in Calgary, where I live. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Clayton.
Awesome. So today we're going to chat a little bit about self-awareness and doing the work, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute here. But before we get into that, Tyler, can you just tell us a little bit about your own journey and what you're up to now?
Sure. I'll try to keep it short because it's a long one if you give me the airspace. Yeah, my journey, God, I keep saying, even on my website, I love my failing forward resume because I keep learning. And that's from John Maxwell's Failing Forward book. That was one thing that cracked me open for sure. And with respect to my journey, I just, early on realized how much I enjoy helping myself and helping others. And I continue on this path, whether it's 27 years in business or over 20 years in athletics and sport and coaching. I just continuously live in this world of curiosity to figure myself out, and along the way trying to help others. So for me, it's been a hell of a journey getting to this place, and I'm just getting started. So self-awareness is, I think, a lifelong commitment. I certainly have, and I'm lots more to that. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what sport did you play? Just curious.
Well, I tried to play everything. I'll call myself a generalist, an athletic generalist. So I don't think I ever excelled on any one thing, but baseball is the first love.
Okay.
Deep in the core, and followed by hockey.
Okay, awesome. So why did you want to talk about self-awareness and the work? And it is work.
Yeah. Well, I think even the moment you and I met, we got into a pretty in-depth conversation, had an instant connection. And for me, it's just something that constantly comes up with a person like yourself that's done some work and they're open to that in the conversation. And for me, it's one of these constants, like I just said, where I believe all of us, living in this constant state of curiosity to try to figure out ourselves, is super important. So for me, especially in a sense of business, like you and I spoke last week, I know I was guilty of this early on with respect to, you get a title on a business card, and it's pretty damn cool. You're feeling pretty proud of yourself, whatever you did to achieve that title. And as you progress or get promoted or opportunities, there's a sense of pride behind that. But sometimes I know for sure myself, I really didn't have a lot of self-awareness. There were so many other things running me that you just don't know. It's on autopilot, right? And until you recognize that and start to do the work, I find, not to say I did this often, but I definitely didn't look inward. So I was chasing something without figuring myself out first, whether it's switching a job or a company or, moving or certain things where you just constantly, I'm a hyperachiever. So once I don't feel like I'm in that constant state, could lose interest, if you will, or get a little late. Not late. I'm never lazy. I shouldn't say that, but just get to a stage where, you don't do the work to figure out why you're coming to that stage. And, happiness is an inner project, right? And I think so. I certainly went through moments where I probably was not lighting my own fire and chasing something besides doing the work to figure out why I'm chasing that.
You ever chase something and then realize you don't know why you're chasing it. Like, that story like they say about climbing the corporate ladder and then getting to the top and realizing I actually don't like this at all. Right. I'm just curious. When did you like, was there something that was like a turning point for you where you realized you needed to become more self-aware?
Good question. I was going to say that I think I did the right thing in my late teens when I put myself through some therapy after my parents were going through divorce, trying to figure out why I had the thoughts I had and such.
Mm-hmm.
Very superficial thing. I didn't really go deep. I didn't know why. I just talked to some third party person to help me express stuff on my mind and I'll get off my chest.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of work didn't really truly progress until probably 15 years later. And then when I was going through a divorce, in that process, I mean, you can probably go both ways in that circumstance where you want to fall off the deep end and or try to figure out, how you contributed to that and what are you about a little bit more and try to figure out what's running you. Like one of my coaches would say, like air to a bird and water to a fish. You don't know unless you distinguish it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So about just over 8 years ago, that's when I really started to get deep into the work that I was trying to figure out what was running me.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I find in my own experience, it's. I don't know if you've ever heard this saying that when something bad happens, like when you go through a challenging season, you're either going to get better or you're going to get bitter. Right.
Yeah.
Kind of talked about that and, divorce sometimes, you can either like learn from it and grow or, maybe you just medicate, right, in some way and not deal with it. Right. Not do the work to improve.
Yeah. And each to their own. Sometimes people are scared to do the work. I know I was.
It's hard.
Certain opportunities came up. I was like, that sounds incredible. Holy shit. I'm not ready for that.
Right.
That sounds pretty, dark, revealing, confronting.
Yeah.
All of that, right?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging to really take a look in the mirror. I think, we talked about earlier the word busy. I think a lot of times people just kind of use that excuse that they're too busy, be able to do things. And it seemed like during COVID when things got really shut down, all of a sudden people couldn't be busy anymore. Mm-hmm. Right. And all of a sudden, I think people maybe for the first time in a long time, if ever, maybe had an opportunity to look in the mirror and really get introspective. It kind of forced people to. What do you think of that? Do you think that was the case in your experience?
I 100% agree. And I think those certain people continued to find a way to use busy in their vocabulary for some reason because it gets ingrained and it's just something where, especially if you're a high achiever, you want to maintain a certain level of intensity in your day, if you will, and working from home offices and all of that change. You got TV, you got laundry, you got kids, you got all this stuff, right?
Got a computer in your pocket.
Yeah. So I am assuming it was very difficult for many. And to your point, you make me think of the amount of people that started being super, I would say, authentic and vulnerable with them, where they're at with things. We saw a lot of stuff happen and be expressed with mental health and, that sort of inward work. I think it definitely forced people that look at that situation as an opportunity to start doing some of that work and searching their mind and soul of what's going on. Yeah. And so, it went the opposite for sure. And
yeah, I think it was like they talk about the great resignation, right? I think some of it was probably a result of that, right? It's like, you know what? I've had some time to think, and I'm not really sure this is the right ladder. That this path that I'm on is really the path. Maybe it's not a bad path. Like for myself, it wasn't a bad path that I was on. It was a good path, but I think during COVID, I realized, you know what? But I want to I want to blaze my own trail, right? I think you put it earlier, bet on myself, right? I
Yeah.
want to start my own thing. And I did that in August of 2020 after some reflection and some time off because work was so slow. So it was good.
Yeah. Even in that work, as you expressed that, Clayton, I'm assuming you had time, like in business, get out of your business, get on your business, the cliche. It's the same sort of thing from what I can tell is you probably had more moments to take and to do that type of search and
Mm,
what you're looking for rather than stay at that, constant state of doing and trying to
yeah.
strategize or think about, where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. I had 6 weeks off
Sure.
when my last son was born. And basically, I just played with my other two kids for 6 weeks and
Perfect.
thought and reflected, and an opportunity came and I decided to make a change and it was really good. But, as far as my own self, awareness, I think, it was my 20s probably when someone gave me, I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first book,
Mhm.
right? That really kind of challenged my thinking about being an employee and, those kinds of things and started me on a journey. And, I've been through some pretty tough things as well in my life. And, I think each of those is an opportunity to reflect and try to decide, what the path you want to be on is and
Yeah.
grown through the years and, but yeah, it's looking in the mirror and sometimes you need someone to hold the mirror up in front
Yeah.
of you, right?
Yeah.
People challenge me, and push me. And I've been the challenger and pusher as well for some people. But yeah, you need to have that as well. The people around you that can challenge you. So, so what is the work? Like if we did call it the work, right? But how would you define that in your words?
It's a good question. I think each to their own, however they want to start this type of journey, because
Yeah.
there's so many amazing methodologies and modalities out there and things that
Yeah.
work. But we're all so different.
Yeah.
Uh, for me, I know it was a slower roll, like I would talk about just over 8 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a bit of fear that showed up right away when I met some people that you knew what they did, how they did it would be super impactful, but it's going to come with a lot of emotion. I'm an empath. I cry at the Scotiabank commercial when the selling the home, or they're taking away the height thing of the family, and like, you know, there's when I get into some deep work, there's a lot of emotion that comes up because I want to be authentic. I want to be vulnerable with that, and so for me, being comfortable to do the work is fine, but with the type of the type of options that I was considering for me, I started with my own personal way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
But then my call it cognitive dissonance, all of my constraints, all of my ways of being and acting, how I wound up being, all that sort of stuff
Mm-hmm.
was getting in the way. So for me to do the work without somebody helping me, I was just a bunch of bullshit, like lying to myself. It's kind of superficial. I wasn't really truthful with, going through the type of process to get to the root of whatever I was trying to get to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was just kind of, as you were talking, there's kind of reflecting on my own journey. And I remember there was a time in my life where I thought I was the only one who had issues.
I love it.
And I remember,
Man, I'm with you.
and so I'm managing appearances, right? I'm trying to look the part, so that I can fit in or whatever. And then, I was fortunate I became a part of a great church. This would be 17 years ago or something. And I joined, some small groups that were kind of like this, like that were kind of, I don't know what you would call it. One was called Search for Life, and it was just, kind of doing the work, right? And in the group, it was very healthy sharing, right? Like people were sharing what they're struggling with based on the topic that we were watching. Like usually there was a video or something, right? And that was kind of my first interaction of, okay, these people are all messed up too. Right? And it's like, maybe I'm not so weird. Maybe I'm normal, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe this is just part of life, is just navigating and figuring out, issues and challenges. And, and that was kind of a turning point for me, was when I realized, and I don't know, I think I was quite a solitary kind of hermit type person for, probably in my, most of my 20s. And so I had a lot of wrong thinking, right, about that. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think, I think some people are in that appearance management place where they're alone. And what are your thoughts on kind of that?
Yeah, I laugh because I'm with you, and I wouldn't call it wrong thinking. I would just say it's the thinking you had, because I had similar thoughts. And then once you get into that type of group, that's why I benefit from group sessions. I do my own group sessions.
Yeah.
But perhaps some of us need that aha to be like, huh, yeah, we're all a little messed up, aren't we? Even that beautiful home, the richest person you can see in the block, they got the same stuff going on. It's
and we're all fighting a battle.
Yeah, it's the self-talk, right? And I was sharing just before we got on here the work I'm in right now with respect to Shiraz Sharman's positive intelligence and the mental fitness program I'm going to help myself and help others that I coach.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a handle of those saboteurs that run us, that we have, that we cannot mute. We just need to recognize and find other ways to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I find, healing to see others share. And once you be authentic with your inauthenticities,
Mm-hmm.
that's when the work really started to become impactful for me, because then I wasn't worried to express something if it was authentic to me. However it landed with whomever, great, so be it. Like you can't, like, once you get the logical thinking mind in place, that becomes a little bit dangerous in a way. You're not really fully present, and you're thinking about how they'll react, what they'll say, do they believe you, right, wrong, did you, oh yeah, no, I said that I'm not smart enough, I'm stupid, I'm slow, all the stuff that shows up. Like, yeah.
We call that head trash in the EOS community, right? Is like all those voices. And I was talking with someone recently, and I kept hearing him say things like, I want people to see me as being wise, or see me as being smart, or whatever. And I said to him, because you're saying it that way, I feel like you're more concerned about what people think of you than what you actually are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And for me,
How did that land with him?
Sorry?
How did that land with him?
Good. He's like, oh, yeah. I said, because for me, I used to be like that. I used to be like a perfectionist and, really scared of what people thought of me. And I'm thankful that for the most part, I've been able to let go of a lot of that, most of that head trash. And it's so freeing, right? To live a life at peace where I'm not concerned about what other people think. Right.
Yeah.
I hope I'm respected, and, I hope, that the things that I say are add value and all those things. But ultimately, like for me, it's my faith that grounds me, right? I know that God loves me regardless of what you think of me. Right. And so I'm the only audience I play to is God, because I know that he loves me. And if I please him, and I operate in a way that pleases him, then, I don't have to worry about other people. Yeah. Right. So it's a very freeing, much more secure place to be. There's a great book. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called The Only Leaders Worth Following by Tim Spiker. And
I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah, check it out. It's really good. He talks about how to be a leader worth following, we need to be inwardly sound and outwardly focused.
Love that.
right? And you can't be outwardly focused if you're not inwardly sound. If you're consumed by head trash and those voices in your head that are telling you you're not good enough, or, what are they thinking of me, right? Like, you really can't be a leader worth following, because you're not, like you said, present. You're not showing up, right,
No.
as your best version of yourself. So yeah, I think there's lots of different ways to get there, like you kind of alluded to.
Oh,
The most important thing is that you work on getting there, right? Because it's a
yeah.
much better way to live, isn't
It
it?
100% is. And I love that you said who your audience is. I'm not religious. I always say I'm spiritual. I know more of what that means. I didn't early on.
Yeah.
If you see some of my core story posts on LinkedIn and what have you, I've been sharing a lot of one area of how I've worked on to get rid of old identity stuff.
Yeah.
But I 100% wasn't that clear as you are. Like I was not. There was
And I
way.
wasn't either, right? Like, I wasn't a person of faith growing up. I was 27,
Oh,
28 when I discovered faith. And it's completely changed my life. Obviously other things like positive intelligence and different things that I've read and learned over the years have really helped me in counseling. But it's my faith that's the real difference maker for me.
good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. Whatever that is, that helps that clarity. And isn't it amazing? Again, going back to one of my coaches, is incredible with Unstoppable Conversations, but to be and free to act in any and all situations, it's one thing to say it, to feel that, and to just know that you've done all of the inward work to be who you need to be in a situation or a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and yourself without that. The gentleman you're just talking about, that image that you want to live into or live up to, that you create for yourself, you want others to see you as.
Yeah.
You're
It's
you
just,
are.
it's just confining,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Like, because it's almost like lying, right? Like,
yeah,
you're lying to yourself. You're playing games, and you have to try to keep it all straight in your mind and make sure you're like, it's just, I haven't lived that way in a long time, but when I say that out loud, I just, it makes my shoulders feel heavy. Do you know what I mean? Like, to have to play all those games, like, it's just so much more relaxing and peaceful to just be you, right? And not have to, and that's maybe foreign to some people that are listening today, but it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be that way. It's just so much more free, right? To just be you.
yes. I love that you've got to that stage, and we were also talking about flow states, and I know what it feels to be in a flow state where I'm not, my logical thinking mind is not in my way, and I'm just being and acting. I love ontology, like just who I'm being in moments, and why I'm being a certain way, who I'm showing up for, and others and myself, but just really getting that head out of the way. I find it's law of attraction stuff. What you think, what you feel, especially what you feel. If that feeling mind, you're just vibing. You're at a different vibration, and not forcing that power versus force thing that I finally understood years later what that meant. And then it's just this freeing feeling that, if anyone listening, if you've had that moment, good on you. If you haven't, I tell you, it is such a beautiful place. Once you get a sniff of what that is, a crack, it becomes addictive.
Yeah.
Like I get pissed off if out of that flow. Like today I said to you,
when you're pushing,
yeah, you're pushing and you're forcing stuff, but like I'm exhausted today. I had a crappy sleep. I didn't eat a lot. I have all these excuses. I couldn't find my MasterCard. I've never lost my MasterCard. I'm like, oh, I got to talk to Clayton today. I'm like, I'm not in a great space. Hyperachiever. I need to do that stickler perfection type thing.
yeah,
Recognize it. And then I do some moments to get myself back on track, and I know it's all okay. But
yeah,
boy, like that mind was just churning for hours today. Amazing moments, zero regrets, but
Yeah.
when you recognize how much you're off, when you're off, and to get yourself back on track, to
Yeah.
distinct.
That's self-awareness piece. Cause there is things you can do, right.
Oh yeah.
To get back in the flow state. Right. But the first step is the awareness piece, right? Like I just had a memory pop into my mind and I'm going to share it. I think I remember when self-awareness became real for me, and I don't remember what grade it was. This is a long time ago. I had a bit of a rage problem when I was in elementary, which is probably hard to imagine because I'm pretty even keel calm now. But I remember I would rage, and my best friend one time raged on someone in front of me. And I remember looking at him and going, is that what I look like
Oh wow.
when I rage?
Yeah.
And I was like, probably. And I don't want to do that anymore. Right. And I was probably like 10, right?
Let's say what that's incredible if you had that.
It was in elementary. And I remember like it was yesterday. And it was like the light bulb went on and I'm like, I got to work on that. Right. Like I can't be like that. Right. Like that's just, it was really off-putting. Right? And that was like a very early formative moment, I think, where I saw, was becoming more self-aware, and, obviously took years. I grew up in a family, like a farming family, and, we don't talk about our feelings. Rage was, my dad would rage and we'd all just kind of sweep it under the rug and pretend it never happened. And, like there was no violence in the family, but, there was, that kind of thing. It was like, you don't talk about your feelings. Right. So, it took me a lot of years to be able to get to the point where I can, right, where that's normal. Right. And now I was a pastor for 7 years, and I obviously learned how to do that. Right. And help people in grief and help people in different kinds of situations. But prior to that, I had to do the work. And during that, I was still doing the work. And today I'm still doing the work. Right. We all have those moments where we're like, oh, wow, I thought I had that beat, but it's back and I need to work. Right?
Well, as I say, I don't think that ever leaves us. And going back to, Shirzad and the mental fitness program I'm on right now, like he's so authentic with his sharing. Yeah. And it's like one of the largest coaching programs on this earth.
Yeah.
And he still acknowledges how his judge shows up in certain things.
Right. He shares his own
different tools and how he deals with it. But it's that head trap. Now I might use that. I've never.
Yeah, it's good. I like.
Oh, that's quite mine. Yeah, no, I might use that. I'm so impressed with you at 10 to realize that, because at 10 for me, I'm not slow, not good enough, not smart enough. Things like that started to get ingrained into my ontological type component of my thinking. I didn't know.
I think for me, I probably swung the other way. I became so self-aware that it was more like self-conscious, right? Like and then I bottled up, right? Because I was afraid, to speak even. Like I was very quiet, quiet person in those years. And like, if you ask my mom, if she's surprised that I ended up doing what I do now, right? She'd be like, yeah, it's incredible how he has changed over the years, because there's no way, like 20 years ago, if you told me I was going to have a YouTube channel, be interviewing people and doing stuff like this, I would have laughed at you. There's no way. That's ridiculous. Right. But I had to overcome that, like extreme self-awareness to the point where it's self-conscious. And I wouldn't even speak up. Like I had a friend one time, we were in multiple meetings preparing for a trip to Rwanda. And him and we went for coffee. And at the end of the coffee, I said, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little better in Rwanda. And he's like, you're going to Rwanda? I'm like, yeah, I've been in the meetings for like 10 weeks. Like, what are you talking about? Right. But that was what I was like back then. I was just so quiet. Right. And didn't have a voice. So I had to discover my voice. So, everybody's got a little different background, right? And struggles and journey to walk.
100%. I love that you brought up conscious, like just thinking about my girlfriend's work, she deals with the subconscious and rapid transformational therapy, in sort of dealing with 95% of what runs us is our subconscious, like a lot of the self work.
Yeah.
That's where you need some help to get inward. If you want to, depending on how deep somebody wants to go back, there's a lot of cobwebs, I assume, that we all have, or some people are like, yeah, okay, yeah, I know that. It's good.
Yep.
I acknowledge it, but shut that door.
Yeah.
But that type of consciousness,
Yeah.
I love that you said that, because once you become conscious of these in any given moment, any given conversation throughout the day, you can really grapple with what's happened if you've done that type of work.
Yeah.
You can say it's a superpower.
Yeah. And one other thing just kind of came to mind too, like, I believe that your team becomes like you, meaning, if I show up self-conscious and, appearance management and doing those kinds of things, I think the team kind of takes your lead and becomes like you. But if you're open and honest and vulnerable and real, I think then that kind of gives permission, right, for the people that are on your team to grow. And I think that's where kind of the rubber meets the road for me, is that, like, if you want to have a healthy business and a successful business where people are growing, you need to do the work, right? So that you model it, right, for other people, whatever, whatever style you use to do it. But what are your thoughts on that? Maybe that'll be the last thing we talk about.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It makes me think of that humility that I have witnessed and not witnessed in certain leaders I've worked with, based on that team that you want to create that will thrive. And they don't have to emulate what you're describing, but just know that there's a safe space for them to just be who they need to be, because the leader has set that example, and let whatever it may be to open up and just show that vulnerability, be authentic. But especially somebody that's got, going back to titles and certain things, there's a lot of things that kind of impede the thinking when you have a certain responsibility. But look at all of I love the world today, the emotional intelligence, all of these,
it's improving
around forever. We're improving, and God, I think women have been much better at this than us for a long time with men, but I see more men showing, and then collectively all sexes are, I believe, just doing a hell of a job recognizing some of this. And I see work environments changing, and individuals adapting to just, it's okay. Like, we are giving each other more grace than ever these days, and a leader that leads with vulnerability and authenticity, and that just sets the bar. It's so great. So yes, it resonates me with really well, and hopefully more and more of those people.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, if someone wants to learn more about you, Tyler, and your coaching, what you do, how should they get in touch with you?
Sure. Website's tylernicholett.com. Should I spell that out? That's a long one.
It's in your name.
I know. Yeah. And or emailing me at tyler@tylernicholett.com is a great way to start. On my website, if you want some time with me, there's a right fit call you can book. It goes right to my calendar.
Awesome.
I my phone number too if you want.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's also good. That's probably good. Awesome. So on behalf of our viewers, thank you for joining us, Tyler. This is not a topic that I think is talked about as much as it should be. We all have issues. We all have challenges, and it's good, like you said, that things are improving where we can be more open. So I'm sure this is going to be helpful to people who watch it. So if today's interview added value to you, please subscribe to this channel for future interviews with experts in the world of business.